Hey there, I'm Andy Barney. I am the master technician and owner of the Sewing Doc Professional Machine Shop and also Sewing Doc Academy, which is a place to learn all aspects of sewing machine maintenance, repair, and restorations. Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Academy. I feel like it's going through a rebirth before we even really got to do what we had planned to do. We created the Sewing Doc Academy to teach the art and science of sewing machine maintenance and repair, ranging from just taking care of your machine yourself to the hobbyist that wants to tinker, all the way through to the individual that wants to become a professional or have their own shop. So all of our methods kind of cover those three things depending on what your needs are. And some people that start out thinking they just want to take care of their machine realize that it's fun and want to go a little further. So what you see on your screen is actually a screenshot of our homepage website. And it does kind of encompass exactly what our purpose is. It says, for far too long, the sewing machine service industry has been controlled by a limited few and designed to keep you in a vulnerable position. It's time to shift this paradigm and put you in control. Currently, there aren't any vocational schools, colleges, or full-scale programs that teach sewing machine service and repair. Dealers are the main source for service, and their business model is to sell you a new machine rather than fix the one you love. You may even have to drive for hours to find a service person or dealer and wait weeks or months for service. Our workshops are designed to give you as little or as much as you desire. Whether you wish to start your own business or just learn to work on your own machines, you will learn the same procedures used in the Sewing Doc Professional Service Shop. There's a lot of free information out there on the web. So one of the things people ask me a lot is, well, why would I do that if I can just go and Google it? Well, if you've ever hung out in any of the Facebook groups, you're going to see that you could ask a question and 20 different people with very strong opinions, which is kind of code word for likes to argue, is going to answer your question. Then you're stuck with, how do you know which one is the right answer? And that's just in the Facebook groups. You can Google your sewing machine model and find someone that made a video on some aspect of what they did to their machine. The problem is they didn't know what they were doing, and now you're taking their information and it may be addressing an issue you're not having, even if the symptoms are the same. And then you're going to end up in your repair shop with your machine and parts and a much bigger charge. So the correct answer is to how do you know which information is correct is you don't. So as far as the Academy goes, COVID has changed everything, certainly short term, but I really think our industry has been damaged long term. There was already a technician shortage before COVID, and it's one of the reasons I came up with the Academy in the first place. Back in 2017, I got to the point where my machine shop was growing to the point that I really just couldn't meet the demand anymore. So, of course, your first thought is, well, hire a technician. They don't exist. So it's not easy to become a technician nowadays. There is another video I'll link to on my YouTube channel about becoming a technician and what that looks like. And it talks about how the industry addresses it, which in my opinion is nowhere near adequate to what we need. So what I had thought about doing was, what if we teach people, to take care of machines, mostly vintage at the time. That was our big demand. And then we could pull people from those classes that had great potential and turn them into apprentices. And then if they liked it and we liked them, we could grow them into technicians, kind of old school style with apprenticing. And so we tested the idea. We started with just launching a few classes. This was in 2018 when we tested the classes. It was just the featherweight class, which I'm not the first and only person ever to teach a featherweight maintenance class, but it's always going to be the highest demand. So that was a natural thought. And then I also launched a vintage machine maintenance class. I just called it a vintage machine workshop, and that's because it handled all vintage machines, not just one model, and it was pretty comprehensive. Not quite as involved. There are a few folks that are amazing that teach you complete teardowns, like you're disassembling the entire machine and put it back together. It's been my experience, after having done this for a decade, the majority of your vintage machines do not need to be torn down. So I don't teach restoration to the point that you're stripping everything, repainting it, doing decals. I do nothing of the sort. I'm teaching you to go to a yard sale, pick up a beautiful all metal Kenmore for $15, bring it home, clean it, maintain it, oil it, minor repairs, how to replace parts, all those things, or the machine that you inherited from your grandmother, or if you have a fleet of vintage machines that you hate hauling in to a technician that may or may not even be knowledgeable about, all of those issues are solved with the Vintage Machine Workshop. So it was extremely successful. Like, I felt like I had hit utopia, because it wasn't about the money. It was because I've always felt like such a weirdo for my level of obsession and my interest in sewing machines. And then here was this group of people that wanted the same knowledge, and it was sort of like a reunion. It was, to me, when you learn in groups like this, it's very social. There's a lot of downtime as far as cleaning and lubricating the machine, where there's not a lot of instruction, so there's a lot of time for conversation. And that's one thing that I'm always going to remember about those classes. But most importantly, we proved that there's a high demand for this, because I sold out every single class I had, and I still have wait lists. So we proved that this did work. So the plan at the time was to find as many local individuals that showed potential to, again, kind of go through our classes, and we could determine would they be a good fit as an apprentice. And I thought that was fantastic. So just as we were about to launch more classes and really, really invest in this academy, and it was all in person at the time, that's when COVID struck. The problem with teaching machine classes in person is that it's really difficult to teach without being within inches of each other's face. And that's just not going to work last year, and it's not going to work this year. That's not a level of comfort I'm okay with. So we thankfully had already started dabbling in the online possibilities of teaching classes online. I had already put the featherweight class up as an on-demand class, and that was very successful. So COVID and quarantine highlighted pretty strongly what we already knew, and that's that there are just not enough technicians in the field to accommodate the number of sewing machines that need repair or maintenance. Our standard turnaround time has always been around 2 to 3 weeks, but within 1 week of quarantine last year, it went from that to 8 to 10 weeks, and that was just for service. Like, we stayed there, I think, at 8 to 10 weeks until first quarter of this year. We were working 12-hour days, 7 days a week from March until January. And I think we still weren't at 8 to 10 weeks, but it wasn't until maybe April that we started to feel a little bit of a break. So we felt the burnout. We were pretty much sapped of all of our energy to even think about doing much. But the problem is so did all the other technicians in the field. And many that I know have retired because it was too much. I don't know that we could mentally and physically survive another situation like last year. And that's just being honest with you. My physical state had deteriorated because of the demand, and I don't want that to happen. And that's happening to technicians because there is no way to hire help, and there's just too many machines. So I wish that I had really had the academy up and running before COVID, because we could have helped so many more people and saved the frustration of not just the turnaround time, but just being without your machine. You're in quarantine. Like, we all dream of being forced to be stuck in our house with no option but other than like sewing. And when you have that opportunity and you don't have your machine, then what do you have? So I do wish that we had had the academy. And what was most heartbreaking was the number of people who had lost their jobs or been laid off or lost income due to the quarantine and were making money by sewing masks. And without your sewing machine, there's no income. There was a machine shortage. Like Joann's, Walmart, Amazon, everybody sold out of machines. Our dealer that we were partnered with ran out of machines. So, like, it was a problem across the board, and we're now trying to address that. And with it being August of 2021 right now, we're potentially facing a repeat of last year. I don't know that it's going to be the scale of quarantine, but I do worry about shutdowns. And I'm also concerned that we have holiday season coming, and that is peak time for any technician. People start pulling out their machines to do Halloween costumes. Thanksgiving's coming. We have Christmas and holiday, and this is when your machine inevitably has issues. So we're facing now the same situation we had last year with less technicians. And the other point that I want to make is that it's not just that there's less technicians, but when Hancock Fabrics closed all of their stores, I don't even remember what year that was several years ago, that really took away the independent technician for small towns across America. That means that there are lots of people in rural areas that don't even have a technician. I know people that contact me all the time and beg me for help because their closest technician is 6, 7, 8 hours away. They don't even know if they work on the machine that they have. So it's not just a one-fold issue. So to tell you a little bit more about Sewing Doc, we are committed to making expert, reliable, accurate knowledge available to anyone that wants to maintain their own machine or go beyond and learn the full spectrum of sewing machine service and repair. So we're committed to offering these classes regardless of your location. That means that we are going to spend our time focusing on virtual and on-demand classes only. We will not be hosting any in-person classes for the foreseeable future. Should the situation with the pandemic change and our availability change, we will definitely revisit having retreats and in-person classes again. But travel is really expensive and difficult right now and potentially impossible for many people. So the pandemic is surging on, and we are just trying to address that issue as best we can. Everything we teach, though, is the exact same procedure and method that we use every single day in our professional service shop. I've been specializing in vintage machines and restoration since the beginning, and not a lot of technicians will even touch them. One, because they don't feel like it's worth the effort that needs to go into them, but to be honest with you, the majority of modern technicians just aren't trained in handling vintage and antique machines. So we're going to cover everything from vintage restoration to treadles. Gear replacement is huge. There's so many technicians that won't do or don't know how to do gear replacement, and it's not economical just to have a sewing machine, but for many people that is a sentimental value machine that's been passed down for generations. We will cover gear replacement. We're going to cover everything about modern machines. So if you're one of those types of people that wants to go all the way through and have a professional shop, we will have a certification program available hopefully next year or in 2023 where you can apprentice with us virtually even, and we will be formulating ways for you to test and prove your knowledge so that you can put the Sewing Doc name behind your name. We would really love to have a network of Sewing Doc technicians across the country so that when people know that you are fully trained and certified by our academy, that you have the same level of knowledge that we do. So if you'd like to know a little bit more about myself, I had given you a little bit of my history, but I've been working on all range of machines for over 10 years. The Sewing Doc shop has grown a bit. My husband, Paul, is the shop manager and runs the day-to-day operations at Sewing Doc in Cumming, Georgia. And he is also a technician. He specializes in vintage and antique restoration. He does a lot of the rust removal and rewiring and things that are not machine related. And we have a great system to make everything efficient. He will be teaching a lot of classes for Sewing Doc Academy, including motor rewiring and potted motor rewiring and a lot of specialty fun things that will make working on machines a lot faster. And my brother-in-law, Todd, is also a consultant with Sewing Doc Academy and has been working with us for about 3 years. He mostly handles the complex things such as gear replacement, the machines that have to be disassembled because of varnish, lubricant, really, really complex, detailed things that literally nobody else wants to do. But he has an engineering background and he's really good at it, and grateful for that kind of help. That's not something every shop can have. So that's what we're looking at. I just wanted to give you an overview of what we're looking at for Sewing Doc Academy. I do have another video we're about to do addressing what our classes are going to look like. Everything will be online as far as learning. Again, we have two different methods. We've just decided to do a hybrid where you're going to get both on-demand videos and live instruction from instructor. Granted, it's going to be virtual, but everything is going to be a hybrid, and I will talk about that more in our next video. In the meantime, we would love for you to follow us on our journey and become part of Sewing Doc Academy, regardless if you just want to care for your machine or learn the more in-depth concepts of it. Please sign up for our newsletter. I promise you, I have no time to spam you. So if I send you a newsletter, it's something good. It's something announcing the class is coming up, asking for your opinions, and just letting you know what's going on with us, because I'm not the best at sending emails, but we really, really want to grow this academy to the point that we are a self-sufficient people.